Alright, so Elizabeth asked me to answer a couple questions. Don't mind my son down here, who will probably make a little bit of noise. Okay, so the first question is, what seemingly small things do church members do and contribute that make a difference in the world that you get to observe on a daily basis? How are individuals contributing to make an impactful difference? So part of my job is working with the humanitarian department. And as I'm sure you guys have realized, one of our heavy focuses in the last little while has been refugees. So, a couple of years ago in Women's Conference, Sister Burton started a challenge asking the membership to kind of take on the refugee problem and try to be friends with people who are new to this country and kind of be of service. And from that call to action, a lot of people did really amazing things that got sent into us and that we got to see, and that we haven't been able to share as much with the general membership as we'd like. We got a lot of really amazing emails of stories of what people had done to kind of welcome the refugees into their community. Some of the most impressive things I've seen, I think, are just the ways that people have kind of brought together the whole congregation to do something. Recently, we had a story of a ward that kind of ran an activity for a good chunk of the refugee population in their immediate area, and did a Christmas party because most of the refugees were coming from countries where they didn't celebrate Christmas and they weren't familiar with this tradition. And so they brought together a bunch of them and threw them a Christmas party and kind of taught them this American tradition that, now that they're living in America, they are sharing this tradition with them that they can continue to celebrate as they live in this country. And so one of the cool things about it was they had the youth in charge. The youth did everything. The youth invited everyone, they ordered the food, they put together the activities, they organized the transportation for everyone to get there. So it was a really neat experience for them to be exposed to all these different cultures and kind of understand what it takes to plan a large-scale activity in the ward. And so we've seen some really, really amazing things that people have done in response to this call to action. I listened to an interview the other day with a lady who all of her kids are out of the house. She was retired at home and just felt like she had the time and means to do something. So she basically moved to Greece and has been there without her husband, actually. That was I'm sure that was the hardest part. Her husband is still in the United States. So she decided to go to Greece for about 6 months or so, maybe longer, maybe a year. And, she would fly home every once in a while to visit her family. But she stayed there and kind of just helped the refugees that were landing in Greece in these refugee camps and just kind of assisting them with whatever they needed, getting them things they needed, running some of the programs, and she was just really, really inspiring. And she had seen a lot because there's some real devastation there that you don't see living here. Some really, really devastating things, and she met some people that had traveled hundreds and hundreds of miles to get to this place that they thought was going to be safe, and while it is, it's not an ideal place to spend the rest of one's life, which some of them never make it out. So there's just some amazing people that are members of this church that have been willing to do a lot of really cool things. So maybe those aren't seemingly small things, but even the smallest thing can make a difference. You can. Sorry, 1 second, I lost my. I've seen people, just say hi to someone, a refugee or someone that is feeling alone or whatever, and that can make a huge difference in the life of someone who's new to this country and that feels like they don't have a community, and they all really want to be part of the community. They want to meet their neighbors. They just don't necessarily know how because they don't speak English maybe, or they're not used to our culture, and so they're not sure. There was one guy I met that he was so afraid to talk to his neighbors because he thought that they would shun him because his English wasn't very good, and he was embarrassed of his pronunciation. And, he really wanted to be part of his community, but he didn't know how. And then, the complete opposite happened, and he met these wonderful ward members who threw a little baby shower for his wife, and found out that they, of course, were delighted to meet him, and his English was actually very good, and nobody cared that, it was his second language. Okay, so the next question is, has seeing the big picture of far-reaching charity that the church provides strengthened your testimony of the gospel? If so, how? Yes, definitely. I don't think you could see what the church does and not feel a stronger desire to know kind of like what the Lord really has asked us, when He's asked us to take care of the poor and needy, which is one of the commandments He's given us. So you can't not have a stronger testimony of that, and kind of understanding like what the Lord did for those while He was living on the earth that were in need. I think the coolest part about working for the welfare department specifically is the work that we do there is actually probably the strongest missionary tool that the church has, because you can't argue with caring for the poor and needy. There's not, I don't think, a person on this planet that would say, oh my goodness, the church shouldn't do that. None of what we do is really very doctrinal. In fact, we try to keep the doctrine out of it as much as possible, so that, because the only argument people could have is that, we're just helping people to try to baptize them after. And so we try very, very hard to keep the gospel out of it. We don't want our humanitarian missionaries seen as proselyting missionaries, and so we try to keep that out of it, because we just want to lead by example and show that we are willing to help anybody, regardless of religion, race, culture, whatever. The humanitarian and welfare department of the church is for the world, not just for the membership. So when people see that and see that we don't have an agenda, we just honestly want to serve as Christ served, they can't argue with that. And there's so many of our videos that we've tested with non-members where people have changed their mind about the church after seeing this work. And I think that's the coolest thing, is that not only has my testimony been strengthened, but I've been able to see people who aren't members completely change their view of what the LDS Church is, based on kind of seeing some of the work we do. The next question is, President Hinckley was an employee for the church before he was called to be a general authority overseeing the LDS Church's public relations. This encompasses news, media, print, etc. He had a view of the future and worked hard to bring the church up to date and user-friendly, so to speak. Do you relate to him as you work to help the church projects along? Do you think that President Hinckley's style was related to his journalistic knowledge and experience? So I recently, a few weeks ago, went back and watched all of President Hinckley's appearances on TV, because I was a little bit younger when he was on, David Letterman, or sorry, not David Letterman, when he was on Larry King, and when he kind of appeared on those different news channels. So anyway, I went back and watched those over Christmas break, and it was really, it was good to see it. If you haven't watched it, you can find them on YouTube, and they're really good to watch, because that was kind of the first time the church had ever done anything like that, and I think it was a huge, huge benefit for the church to finally come out and, in a big way, on a big platform, answer some of the questions that people had about Mormons. And I love, the one thing that President Hinckley's PR background gave him was not being afraid of the camera. He wasn't afraid. He knew that he could address the questions in the way that he wanted to address them, in a short and simple manner, and kind of give people a taste of this mysterious religion that not a lot of people knew about. So, yes, in a way, I can relate to him in that I think it's important for us to be up to date with technology. Sometimes people feel like they really want to hang back and are afraid of some of the new things that kids are doing and the harm that it could possibly cause. And there's some truth to that for sure, but I think it's really important for us just to be up to date, so that, we can kind of confront those things head on, because no matter whether or not we're on certain things, our kids certainly are. So might as well, because I remember when Facebook first came out, my parents were really, really against me being on there. They didn't know what it was. They didn't understand it. And I think sometimes doing that can be worse than just trying to understand what it is and how it can, how you can protect your kids from it if you need to, and what benefits it can have. So the church is actually really good at doing this, I can't remember which apostle said it, but one of them said, if there's a new platform, the church wants to be on it so that we can be a light of influence everywhere versus kind of shunning it and ignoring the people that are going to be on there anyway. For example, the church got a Snapchat. And for a while, just like with every social platform when it came out, membership was kind of like, oh, I don't know about this. I think it would be a bad thing for our kids to be exposed to. But the church wants to be on there. They want to be on every platform, so that they can influence people wherever they are. So they have a Snapchat, they have a Facebook, they have a Twitter. So I think it's really important to kind of be up to date with that and user friendly and understand technology, because it's really hard to reach people that need the gospel or that are struggling if you can't be where they are, so to speak. So yeah, I'm really pro technology and kind of making sure you're up to date with things. So the next question is, it's such an interesting conundrum to be part of the world, current with and collaborative with the world, but not to be of the world. How do you think we can live in this world? Sorry, I was having a meltdown. How do you think we can live in this world distinctively, adding to the light of our Savior's work, sharing our examples, our missions, and love without being of the world? Can you share any specific examples of hurdles you have mounted in this area? Okay, 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. So the question is basically, how do you be in the world but not of the world? While sharing the Savior's work. So, kind of a hard question, because I think a lot of times it's a line that we don't maybe always know that we're crossing when we're crossing it. But I think it kind of maybe answered it in my last question. I think it's important to be up to date with what the world is doing, what kids are doing, what we're going towards, with all the social platforms. And the church has been trying hard to keep up to date. We do Facebook Lives. We try to make sure we're there with all the technology, regardless of the unique hurdles that it provides the church, because we feel like that's important. Read the news. Sometimes the news is depressing, but you know what? It's important to know what's going on and to not be in denial about what kind of world we live in right now. It's depressing, it is, and they don't always focus on the happy things, but sometimes they do. And I think it's just important to be aware of what we're kind of dealing with, what kind of things people are doing, and then taking that and deciding to be a light in the world, regardless of what's going on. So I think using your influence to do good, and regardless of kind of what you're seeing in the world, is important. And personally, hurdles I've mounted, I think it's a hurdle for anybody to, in a way, keep their testimony and keep their light of Christ alive, among everything else that's going on. So yeah, in a way, it's been hard, and at the same time not hard, to have hope and faith when there's not really a whole lot to hang on to otherwise, when you if you get sucked up into everything that's going on. So, I just would say, read the news, keep up to date what's going on with the world, but at the same time, make sure you have an understanding, a really good understanding of what really matters and what the Lord's promised us regarding, our happiness and, in eternity, and knowing that everything will be okay in the long run. And that good will overcome evil always, regardless of what the ratio seems like in the media. So hopefully that helps. That's just kind of a few of my thoughts, based on the profession that I have currently. So thank you so much, and we'll talk to you later.